I had thought as a store manager that if I just did the things that I had done as an assistant manager or as a part-time associate, I'd be a successful store manager. And I fell into the very common trap of how do you go from being an individual contributor to being the leader of others? The most confounding thing about that shift is that what made you a good individual contributor is actually works against you as a leader of others. I didn't have leadership books. I was 25 years old and pretty naive. I got my first store and I thought if I just work just as hard as I did as an assistant manager, everything will be fine. And it worked completely against me. I had a couple assistant managers leave because I wasn't a great manager for them. I wasn't leading them the way they wanted to be led. And my store got short-staffed and we were really busy. And I'll never forget, it was August. The next day I was going to have a visit from the home office. And back then, visits from the home office were a big deal. Like, people were famously fired for having a bad store visit from someone from corporate. And I remember I was at 3:30 in the morning. I was folding wool sweaters on the plaid carpeting of 12 Oaks Mall, listening to Gin Blossoms, a store system, by myself folding sweaters, and ended up staying all night in the store by myself. The store was still a disaster. It was a train wreck. The fitting rooms were piled with jeans. The cash wraps were a disaster. The mannequins were disheveled. I hadn't dusted. I had lights burned out. And the next morning at 8 o'clock, the visitor from home office shows up with a cup of coffee in her hand, and my store was a disaster. At this point in time, you have to sort of think about where I was. I had graduated from college. I had a amount of student loan debt. I had deferred graduate school, the school that I wanted to go to. I ended up deferring it because I was a little bit of a lost college graduate, and I thought I was going to be fired that morning. And thankfully, she came in, and she'd obviously seen this before, and she didn't fire me, but she pulled me aside and said, "You're failing. And you're failing because what you think will make you a good manager is not the right thing. You need to go build a team. And then you need to empower and motivate and align and inspire a team to go do great work for you." Luckily, I wasn't fired. She stayed in my store that day. I literally went out and recruited some other people to come work for me that day. So it actually ended great, but it was this really painful experience. And you hear this all the time. Growth happens in the toughest of times. And that was a really tough time because I was a scared 25-year-old that thought I was going to lose his job. But that person took a kindness on me and really thought about what I needed to learn and do different. And she was patient. And luckily it worked out.